Senators last Thursday passed the Agricultural Reform, Food and Jobs Act of 2012 by a vote of 64 to 35. The Senate's version of the Farm Bill aims to cut $23 billion over 10 years. We talked with UNL Extension Public Policy Specialist Brad Lubben this week about the Senate's bipartisan bill and about how the House of Representatives might act on their own.
There was debate in the Senate on the floor, several amendments proposed, and in fact the Senate did something that's increasingly rare in Washington, which is pass a bipartisan bill. The major changes that we did see coming in the Senate version from what was earlier discussed in committee, there is continued focus on commodity programs. There were tighter payment limit amendments proposed and added to the bill. There were some additional changes to crop insurance, some restrictions on crop insurance premiums for higher income producers, some additional restrictions on conservation compliance that would be required of producers participating in crop insurance. Both really a focus that tightens down the commodity program safety net just a little bit more than what was originally proposed.
And before this, we had talked so much about farmers are okay with going with direct payments, at least in this area, but they wanted crop insurance kept as a safety net. What does crop insurance look like now, or at least going forward?
Well, crop insurance in some sense is largely intact going forward, at least in the Senate version. It is clearly the foundation of the safety net. That was presumed going into this Farm Bill debate, and that clearly stands out in the Senate version of the bill. There are nicks and cuts here at the edges of crop insurance, and they've been a target for cuts over the last 5 or 6 years, largely because they've grown. They've grown to a point that now they're the major budget component of the safety net, and now they're #1 budget target remaining after we've gotten rid of direct payments in this bill.
But Acre's gone, Sure's gone, countercyclical gone, all of those no longer exist.
The traditional safety net is gone, including the revenue component from the 2008 Farm Bill, but it's a new revenue-based safety net, ARC, that we'll have to learn a new acronym and some new language that is proposed in the Senate bill as essentially as an add-on on top of crop insurance.
We talked about conservation programs only a few weeks ago. What does conservation programs look like, at least in the Senate version of this bill? Well,
the Senate version, conservation programs, I think, look largely intact. The CRP is the big target, and it was cut. It's proposed to cut from 32 million to 25 million acres. That saves budget dollars. That also sort of recognizes that land is coming out of the retirement program back into crop production in response to current prices and current economics. So the conservation program is largely as expected. There is a lot of consolidation of many different program titles into a fewer categories, but still largely the focus is primarily working lands, continue to grow, although perhaps not quite as fast as projected. Easements to help preserve land in its current use are an area for growth. We'll see those programs continue to grow, but not quite as fast as originally projected.
There were a number of amendments also tacked onto this bill. One was submitted by Mike Johanns, Senator from Nebraska, and that was on EPA flyovers.
Right.
How much support was it? It didn't pass, but how much support was there for it?
Well, the EPA amendment, the ban on flyovers proposed by Senator Johanns, received substantial support in the Senate. Not quite enough to be added to the bill, but clearly enough to raise the issue, clearly enough, I think, to get some discussion started on the role of flyovers and the implications of EPA's administration of the program and role in either helping or overseeing the state's implementation of clean water rules.
We go to the House now, and they're not going to act until after the 4th, but what are we looking for in the House? And there are obviously different targets, Republican controlled in the House, Democrat in the Senate. What are the major things that you're looking at as it goes to the floor there?
Right. Well, clearly the Senate version is not the vehicle that the House wants to play with. The House has more representation on the Ag Committee from Southern interests right now, and those interests have been very clear that the kind of safety net proposed in the Senate bill, a revenue-based safety net tied to crop insurance, doesn't fit their commodities, particularly rice and peanuts, that historically have been big beneficiaries of the old price-based support system, not ready to buy into the revenue-based program that's being proposed.
And so the SNAP program, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, food stamps, that's going to go after hard.
Well, that clearly is another target in the House. In the Senate, the Farm Bill proposal ended up netting $4 billion in cuts out of $700 billion plus of expected spending over the next 10 years. Very, very small, slice of spending overhead, delivery and administration. The House proposed cuts of more than $30 billion to that $700 billion plus baseline. More programmatic cuts, more eligibility questions, a substantially bigger target than what the Senate has proposed. Whether we come out somewhere in the middle or whether this at least starts the discussion in the House is a big question here going forward.
Current Farm Bill runs through the end of September. What are you looking at for timing? Going to make it or not?
The chances of actually having a new Farm Bill before the end of September are very, slim and none. It would appear. The chances of doing something before the election seem very, very remote. The discussion starts. Perhaps the House Ag Committee does get its work done here in July when they are scheduled to meet. But when will it get floor time in the House? When would we work through a compromise? All indications are that let's look past the election. Let's look to a lame duck session of Congress. They either might wrap it up late this fall, or they'll be looking for some way to extend current legislation into next spring so that we can take care of it then.
In response to its controversial aerial surveillance program, the EPA will hold an informational meeting Monday in Lexington. Representatives from the EPA will answer questions from the public at the Holiday Inn Express starting at 6:30 p.m.